No. I only got one.
Hey, John, you could do that in line item 12 there. The announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Haltom City Council meeting for June the 28th, 1999. We're glad to see you all here. We'll begin with invocation by Councilmember Dewey Markham, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand?
Father, tonight, Lord, we're thankful for this day in which you've given us. We pray tonight, Lord, that you watch over this entire council. May we have the wisdom to do what is necessary for the citizens of this city. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item of business will be a presentation by the Volunteer Service Board.
Madam Mayor,
Who's-
I spoke with the chairman, and the person supposed to receive this not here, that I have not seen them, and I'd like to move that to the next meeting if possible.
All right, very well. Item number 2, consideration or action regarding requests from chairpersons of the Park and Recreation Board, Beautification Board, Animal Control, and Library Boards for additional a quarter-cent economic development sales tax.
Good evening to the council and mayor. My name is David Harper. I'm chairman of the Haltom City Beautification Board. And tonight with me are from the Parks Board are Steve Milius, and from the Library Board, Rexanne Grove, and from the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, Chuck Kendrick. What we've come tonight to ask you and to explain to you is some of the things that we consider to be vital issues in the community that need to be done. And while a lot of these things are volunteers, their time and effort is tremendous in this city, but it's just not enough. At some point in time, we have to have some money. And so we've come here tonight to not complain about the way things are, but we want to improve them. And we just think that we need to take a look at bumping up the sales tax to a rate that would be less than still the surrounding communities, but it would enhance, to my calculations, just under $1 million to the city. So I'd like to start off with Steve Milius from the Parks Board.
Thank you, David. As he said, my name is Steve Milius. I'm the chairman of the Haltom City Parks and Recreation Board. Back in January, our board had a workshop, a long-range planning workshop, where we looked at things that we would like to happen within the Parks and Rec in Haltom City. And out of that meeting, we came a lot of great ideas. And some of those ideas that we'd like to see happen in the next few years include a swimming pool or a water park for Haltom City, a satellite recreation center, new softball fields, and more neighborhood parks. Also, during the past year, we have been addressed by many citizens of Haltom City with some concerns that they have about our Parks and Rec facilities. That many of our facilities are outdated. We're lagging behind greatly in comparison to our neighboring cities that surround us. And also that some of our equipment in our parks are on the verge of being hazardous to our children to play on. Haltom City is making progress, but we feel now is the time to accelerate that progress. As David said, currently Haltom City has the lowest sales tax rate of any of the mid-cities. Even with an additional quarter-cent sales tax, we will still remain the lowest. Haltom City's motto is proud and progressive. We need to have facilities that our citizens can be proud of, and we need to be progressive enough on how we finance them. With your help on our request, you can be the council that lays the foundation for the success of Haltom City for the future. And at this time, I'll turn it over to the library.
Hello. I'm a little shorter. I'm Rexanne Grove, president of the library board, and actually I have two things. I have a little gift for you.
All right, she's sharing gifts. Why did we think that? It's a dog.
We have we have a new library card with our new logo, and we want to give each one of you one of these cards. And it doesn't mean that anyone who has a current card, their card is obsolete or anything. They still work. We just have a new card that's being put out when you get, oh yes, that's great. Thank you. Show that card with the logo. It's very nice, I think. Anyway, as people get new cards and things, then this new card will be used. But your current card is still good. Okay, second, I want to add my request to the other boards and ask you to study this question of raising the sales tax, because the library, like other boards and facilities in the community, needs money. We want to have the kind of facility that the citizens can really be proud of and they can get a lot of use out of. And we've made a lot of progress recently, but there are so many more things we need. The other night at the last board meeting, we sat there and we sort of did a what if. We had money, what would we do with it? And there are many areas, especially like in the materials collection, where there are certain areas in adult books, especially in like legal and medical and scientific areas where they're pretty expensive materials. And then in the children's areas, there are certain types of materials, picture books and easy readers and various things that Rod would love to have some money to spend. And then there are online services. We've got all of these computers now. We've upgraded the computer facilities, but a lot of these online services are expensive. They're very valuable to the community for research, but they're very expensive. And so there are those, plus there are some new staff positions. One would be in the outreach program, which the person who currently is doing it needs an assistant, because that program is very popular. She's very much needed and is busy all the time. And then also we discussed perhaps an assistant in the children librarian area. And so we could go on and on. There are all kinds of things we could do, but there are some really critical areas in the library board, and I'm sure the citizens and myself would really appreciate it if you would consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I know this won't come as any huge surprise to any of you guys. Probably our greatest need in animal control is a new facility. Nancy put out a flyer in the city newsletter and also went out in all the city water bills. We've gotten a good 250 responses to that and generated about $3,500 to date from concerned people that felt like we needed a facility bad enough that they were willing to give some of their money to us. And I think that's a good indication that there's a strong public support for this kind of program. Among the other needs, if we got a facility, we'd want to staff it in such a way that we could increase our adoption rate and do a better job of taking care of the animals that we pick up. We wind up destroying a huge percentage, I'm sure over 90% of the dogs and cats that we pick up in town, and I think that's not acceptable for a city that's supposed to be proud and progressive. I would like to do a lot better job. And I think with this kind of funding, we could improve our appearance in Haltom City.
Thank you.
I'm back. The Beautification Board, back in December of '98, we decided we'd have a 5-year plan, some requests, and I'd like to just go over a couple of the ones we find very important, which I think could come from the increase. We'd like to see a uniform design or a theme for all medians and right-of-ways in the city, so that as the funds become available, various areas of the city can be improved in an organized manner. And I understand last council meeting you are looking at this, and it's hopefully through a grant. We'd like to see the Code Enforcement Division staffed. In my 5 years on the board, I don't know how many we've gone through, maybe 6, something like that, and they just don't stay. I understand we have 2 right now, and we need to retain them. And if that requires a better salary, better teaching, I don't know what it takes, but we feel like the increase could help retain these people. And we sorely need them. Upgrade the care of the landscape areas along Denton Highway 377 and establish a regular maintenance program. We spent about $110,000, not of all of our money, but in a grant. And we put it in, and it's really disheartening. This is the second year it's been in, and some of the weeds in the beds are 4 feet tall. A lot of volunteers last year spent time and money weeding the thing. Personally, I spent about 40 gallons of Roundup on my own time, which I'm glad to do it. But these are things, in my opinion, the city should do. We've got the grants. We're trying to improve it. It'll be a boulevard. It'll look beautiful. The trees get mature, but they have to be maintained. And it's my understanding that the staff is just not there. It's just simply not there, or we can't retain them. We'd like to see that done. In some of the parks, we'd like to see a gazebo or two. That's just some nice features to make the parks a little nicer. Speaking of the Parks and Rec Department, we would like to see that split into 2 divisions. One with a horticulturist over the grounds maintenance, someone who has the expertise and the knowledge how to do this right. A lot of the maintenance it's time consuming, but it's not that difficult if you know how. And it's not a knock on the existing system, it's just they're understaffed. And I believe, and I think the board believes, that if the recreation end of it is done really well, but that person can't do both, particularly understaffed. And so I think some of that money could go in that area, and it would improve the image of the city dramatically. We'd like to see a digital marquee eventually in the city somewhere, maybe up on 820 by the water tower, or even better if we could pull it off by the recreation center. Thing would be about $65,000, but you could put all kinds of messages on that thing to inform the public of things going on, as well as, for example, the brush thing in the city that is not picked up. Just inform people constantly. I don't think it'd be a traffic problem, but I might check with the police on that. But I think that would be a good thing to have. And we could get some help probably from the Star Telegram or a major advertiser in that area. But we need some money many times to match. And same way with the grants. If you can come up with, say, 20%, we make you get 80%. But we have to have also someone who can write the grants or hire a consultant to write the grants. I can't think of anybody that wouldn't want to buy a house if Granddad paid 80% and you came up with 20. It's a good bang for your buck. We'd like to see up by the Northeast Optimist Club, we'd like to see the sidewalk. I don't know if many of you have seen the entrance there. It looks really nice. It's part of the project I spoke of earlier. We'd like to see the sidewalk go from where it is now on up to Browning, and then across the street from Browning up to Western Center Boulevard. This is a pretty expensive thing, but I believe you could probably get most of it from a grant from TNRCC. They had about $1.2 million in grant money just this year, and we need to get some of it, bring our tax dollars back. And that is to purchase a concrete crushing system. The condition of our roads, we're repairing them all the time. You can crush the concrete. You can charge a tipping fee. I know North Richland Hills would probably love to have a place to get rid of their stuff. Maybe Richland Hills, Hearst. Right now, I think Arlington has a contract with Big City Concrete. They're crushing the concrete, and then you sell it back out as road base. And you can sell rebar steel that comes out of it also. It's expensive, but it's recycling. It's the right thing to do, and I'm pretty sure you can get grant money for it. And in that line, too, is purchase a tub grinder. We'd like to see a compost operation ultimately. And once again, compost is, there's some people, they debate whether, the ultimate benefits of having a program, but if run correctly, not only can you may charge the other cities to dump their brush, but then you can turn around and sell the compost. Living Earth Technologies is buying compost right and left from all the people that are grinding it. Silver Creek Materials, of course, sells compost. And there's an outfit on Hemp Hill has 2 large tub grinders. They're selling all their grindings to Living Earth. And then Oscar Renda has a place behind a Bell Helicopter. So it's feasible. And then as Steve mentioned earlier, another thing that the Beautification Board would like to see is eventually a swimming pool for not just the kids, but anybody that wants to have one. I know they're expensive and there's a lot of issues involved, maybe some liability, but if we're going to be up to date, modern, it's our 50th anniversary. It's time to get on with it. And I think it's the right time to do it, and it's the right thing to do. So we'd like for you, our request is for you just to appoint a committee of citizens to take a look and explore the possibility. I think the public needs to know it's not y'all that raises the rate. It's just to, if I'm correct on that, it's to get you to appoint a committee and put it before the voters. I think it's needed, and I thank you.
Thank you. Would council care to take some time to think about this and put it on the next agenda?
Yeah.
Do I have a yes vote? Okay.
Do you need a vote or something?
Well, no.
Okay.
We will put this on the next agenda which will be the first meeting in July 14th? Wait a minute, I've got a 12 and a 14.
Wait a minute, I have a calendar. 12.
12. July the 12th. It'll be back on the agenda. Thank you all for coming. Our next item of business is the consent agenda. I have not received any request to have anything deleted, so we'll be ready for a motion, gentlemen. Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that'd be to move to approve the consent agenda.
Councilmember Williams?
That would be for the second.
Councilmember Art?
Third.
And Councilmember Markham? Fourth. Very well. I have a motion and several seconds. Would you register your votes, please? Okay. Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was hitting the wrong
Yes,
one.
no, yes.
Now we've got it. Passes unanimously. Thank you. We have moved item number 25 up, and that is appointments, reappointments to the boards and commissions, just in case there's someone here this evening that wants to find out if they've maybe been put on a board, and then you'd like to go home. So, gentlemen, Councilmember Markham,
Mayor, I have several appointments to make at this time.
okay?
To the Beautification Board, I would like to reappoint Jane White. To the Crime Control Board,
Excuse me, Mr. Markham, could you turn your microphone up?
I'm sorry. Excuse me, sir. To the Beautification Board, Mrs. Jane White. To reappoint Crime Control Board, Mr. Howard Hoyle, 5305 Chesterland Court. Zoning Board of Adjustments, I'd like to reappoint Mr. Art Geisman. Planning and Zoning Board, Mr. Eddie Edwards, 4135 Goodnight Circle. Library Board, David Everett Jr., 3021 Fincher. Park and Recreation, Donna Roberts, 3416 East Ridge. Ms. Roberts has been on the SOB Board. I have her resignation in hand. Also, Mr. Edwards has been on the Volunteer Service Board, and I have his resignation in hand. To the License Appeals Board, SOB, I would like to appoint Mr. Billy Strong, 4733 Stanley Keller. That's all, Mayor.
Thank
I
you,
missed the
Council.
Volunteer Service Board.
You missed it?
Melanie Jeffries reappoint. I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you. We'll do all of these at one time, and then we'll take action on them. Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have two reappointments or two appointments. To the SOB, I would like to appoint Mr. Jim Bolin, 4233 Von Seal. And to the Crime Prevention Board, Mr. David Stapp of 3225 Rita Lane.
Councilmember Henserling?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to...
I'm sorry, excuse me, 1 minute. Councilmember Jennings, would you read those names again, please?
I'd be more
The
happy to.
address?
Mr. Bolin is at 4233 Von Seal. Mr. David Stapp, 3225 Rita Lane.
Okay. Thanks. Councilmember Henserling?
To the Library Board, I'd like to nominate Mr. Travis Royal, place 2.
Councilmember Ownby?
Two things I want to point out. Before I make this one appointment, I also would like to thank Johnny Finn for his service on the Library Board. Johnny had a couple of years ago, actually, he suffered his first stroke, and then recently he had another one, so it's kind of disabled him to the position where he was not able to serve any longer. And he has officially resigned, and I would like to appoint in his place a fellow previous councilman, Mr. Wayne Iverson.
And I have some appointments myself. To P&C as an alternate, Mr. Tom Hall, 5336 Vicky. For Housing Authority, Mary Parson, 2703 Moneta. Volunteer Service Board, Rick Pisciano, 5808 Lance Court. I have these written down for you that I'll give to you. 2 alternates for the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the first one being Sandra Logan, the second one being Susie Matthews, and for Animal Control, to reappoint Judy Hale. Council members, you move to accept. Councilmember Williams?
I make a motion we accept the appointments as stated, including the resignations as stated.
Councilmember Jennings?
That's for second.
Councilmember Ownby?
Ditto.
Thank you. Please register your vote. Appointments, reappointments pass unanimously along with the resignations. Next on the agenda is the Visitors and Citizens Forum. And I don't have any speakers' request cards, so we'll move on to agenda item number 12, announcements and events of upcoming boards and commissions. This is for the council members to let you know what's going to be happening with their particular boards. Councilmember Ownby?
I don't have the second date, but the first one is very important. The library is actually going to be having Charter Communications come to the library on July the 20th from 4 to 8 p.m. They're going to provide refreshments and advertising and everything and show people how to access and utilize the internet. So I really want to make sure everybody was aware of that. No charge. Great thing to go to. I hope everybody will attend it. That's July the 20th from 4 to 8 p.m.
Thank you. Councilmember Henserling?
Yeah, I'd like to just take a second and recognize some folks. Saturday, the Park and Rec held their annual summer track meet, and we hosted about 18 teams representing 18 different cities around North Texas. And we probably had about 300 to 400 athletes, young athletes there that day. It was a long day, but we had it was a well-organized event ran by our Park and Rec department, George Fowler and Sal Torres. And I'd like to thank the Park and Rec Board members for volunteering their time, and also to the senior citizens who manned the concession stand from 8 o'clock to about 4:30. And not sure how much money they made, but all the proceeds went to support their senior citizen activities. But just a special thanks for everybody for making a good day. The second announcement is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, our Citizens Police Academy is going to be hosting its June meeting, and it's at 7 o'clock at the storefront there on Belknap, near Belknap and Haltom Road, and it's going to be a potluck dinner situation. So I'd like to encourage anybody to come out and who have any interest in the Citizen Police Academy, please come and join us tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilmember Williams?
I had two as well. Goodnight Circle had their block party Saturday. They had a very large turnout. I don't know if Mr. Edwards got a count on how many were there. I know there were 50 kids, but they had a very big turnout. They cooked hot dogs, had a bunch of trimmings to go with it. Mr. Sanderson was there as well as a bunch of the crime prevention members, and some of the COP members were there, and some of the council staff had made it there. And I think they're doing a real good job out there, and I was enthused. I went to their first deal last year, and to see they still have the enthusiasm in the neighborhood to keep their crime watch going, I'm very happy to see that. And my second is a announcement to the citizens of Haltom City, effective sometime a week or two ago. We do not have night court in Haltom City anymore. So if you get a ticket or have some reason that you have to go to court in Haltom City, you'll make arrangements to make a day court. And I want to point out the City Council has no bearing on that. That's all done in the municipal court, and that's all run by the court, and they make their own decision over there. So if you get a ticket and you want to go to night court, you'll have to make arrangements to go to day court. But I talked to Judge Bino this week, and he said in a emergency situation where it'd be a matter where you might lose your job or couldn't afford to take off work, that he would make arrangements to do it after teen court. So he said if there was an emergency where it'd be right and you qualified for that you could come in after teen court, and he would take care of that at that time.
Thank you. Councilmember Art?
Well, I wasn't going to talk about this, but since Councilmember Williams brought this up, also you can now pay any kind of fine at the window now. You don't have to, as in the past, the judge required everyone to come to court. Now that you can just go to the window and pay it I guess it's at here, isn't it?
Yes, it's here in this building.
Okay, it's at this building is the municipal court. It's not at the police station. And another thing I'd like to bring up is people that are interested in Citizens on Patrol. That's a group of citizens that they go out in pairs and cars and they patrol the city. They use police radios. They get to monitor what the police are doing. And we have our own dispatcher at the police station. And anyone who's interested in that, the classes for that we offer about twice a year. The next class starts next week. It's going to be Tuesday and Thursday nights. It'll be for 2 weeks. It'll be from 7 to 9 p.m. So that means the next class starts July 6th. If you're interested in attending, please call the police storefront. Ask for Sergeant Rowell. Phone number is 834-3456.
Thank you. Our next agenda item will be the public hearings. Mr. Eisen?
Item number 13 is an amendment to the zoning ordinance, actually two different groups of amendments that are incorporated into one ordinance. The first group of amendments relates to requirements for paving or other all-weather hard surfaces in commercial areas, and is a result of considerable debate amongst the City Council and considerable discussion between the city and representatives of the business community, and the resulting changes in the ordinance that you're considering this evening are again a result of that agreement between the city and the business community pertaining to those changes. The second smaller group of changes, actually only one change. Currently the zoning ordinance allows someone who has a RV, a recreational vehicle, to park it in front of their home only for 3 hours at a time for purposes of unloading, loading, those types of things. The Planning and Zoning Commission has recently held public hearings to consider changing that time limit, and are recommending this evening that 3-hour time limit be modified to an 8-hour time limit.
Thank you. I now open this public hearing and ask if there's anyone present that cares to speak for this agenda item. Anyone to speak against this agenda item? Then I'll close the public hearing and move to the corresponding ordinance. Ordinance number 01999-02615. Gentlemen, we'll be ready for a motion. Councilmember Williams.
Madam Mayor, I was wanting to ask on the, we'd sent this back to P&Z and had requested some change in the 3-hour parking limit for the recreational vehicles. After doing some research on this myself and calling some folks that have these recreational vehicles, asking what kind of problem this is going to put them in, I'm pretty happy with the entire ordinance with the exception of two things. One, they have an 8-hour limit on how long they can leave the motorhome in front of their home. And I talked to a councilman about this. I talked to some people that own these, and they feel like if they come in, like say from the coast or somewhere from Colorado, and they get in late night, 10 o'clock at night, that means they got to get up 6 o'clock in the morning and go move that. And I was wanting to recommend that we would change that from 8 hours to 24 hours. And on the other thing that we had not sent to P&Z for them to discuss is a maximum length of an RV. I've read this ordinance a couple of times this past weekend. Puts a limit of 35 foot. I drove around this weekend. I found some 40, 42 foot motorhomes, and I count some trailers, travel trailers. 37, 38 foot's getting to be sort of a midline grade on the motorhomes. I'd like to see to remove the total length. The state sets lengths for maximum lengths on these vehicles, and I don't think as a council or as a city we should stipulate what length they should be. If the people have adequate parking for them and they're not in the front yard setbacks and they're legally parked, I don't think really we should put a length maximum on them. But I would like to throw that out to council and also see if we might consider changing the 8 hours to the 24 hours.
Well, you got somebody's attention because we're lit up like a Christmas tree.
I got it started.
Councilmember Quinones?
Well, this came up about a year or so ago, and you know, just one of those things that comes up, it's never thought about. Nobody ever enforces it, and no real situation ever comes up. And but now we're here a year later, and we're still talking about it. I think the recommendation from P&Z of 8 hours is not sufficient, and also the recommendation overnight parking. I mean, you can even have 12 hours, and if you can't go overnight, at least based on what they recommend. I think we need to be realistic about this too. We're not talking about some real criminal behavior here. We're talking about people who are probably pretty reasonable and will take care of things. They wouldn't have an RV to begin with. They're probably responsible people. They're not going to leave it out there for days on end. And I don't think that we need to try to shave off the edges here to fashion an ordinance to achieve goals which I think are already being met by the good sense of the citizens. I think this 8-hour limit is not enough. You can go any kind of example, 10 to 6, 11 to 5, whatever it may be. It's not reasonable. Overnight's not reasonable. I don't see a problem with 24 hours myself. And I just think that that's what we need to go. Again, we can always create scenarios with every kind of an ordinance that we discuss of what might happen if this happened and on these other contingencies. And the more we do that, the more we whittle away and break down people's freedom and rights and criminalize very basic commonsensical behavior. I don't think that any citizen who has an RV is going to leave it out there for somebody to run into it. I think they got enough sense to get it out of there, you know, if they value their assets, they value what they're doing. So I want to trust them to do that. Now, I understand we can't leave it out there indefinitely. We already have an ordinance that says you can't live in it, you can't do things with it. So I think there's that in place now. So I think the 24-hour limit's fine, and I would definitely remove the overnight prohibition.
Councilmember Markham?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've heard a lot of reasons tonight, and all of them valid. But at the same time, most of the people that have RVs, I would assume, I don't want to say elderly people, but I would just say older people. And when they come in from a trip, it takes them longer to recuperate, get ready to get the thing serviced. And I think they need the extra time. And I would like to see 24 hours also.
Councilmember Arp?
Well, I'm not going to belabor the issue. I agree that 24 hours is a lot more reasonable. I'm done.
All right. Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to get on the 24-hour bandwagon. I think 24 hours is a reasonable period of time. But I would also like to thank everyone who was involved with the drafting of this ordinance. City staff did a great job on this. P&Z put in a lot of hard work. And some of the members of the business community were also involved in this, and I'd just like to thank everyone for their efforts.
Councilmember Ownby?
Well, I didn't want to get left out. Quite frankly, Gene hadn't spoke up, so I thought I might as well. In all sincerity, though, I agree with the 24 hours, and I agree exactly with what they're saying, because I think most people are responsible. I won't belabor that either. I was going to make sure, do we already have a motion and a second?
No.
And I do agree with John on the footage, too, because what they are nowadays is not the same as what it used to be, and I just want to make sure everybody else was in accord on that as well.
Right.
Okay. Then I'll be glad to second that motion or stand behind it.
Well, first we're going to Councilmember Henserling because it's all your fault.
Yeah.
I have Councilmember Williams to thank for pushing my light, so I figured I need to say something. I'm too in agreement with everything that's been said as far as the extra time. 24 hours just seems appropriate and practical. And also to echo Councilmember Jennings' sentiments, I think this was a good example of everybody kind of working together, the P&Z, the SAF, the business community working together to come up with a consensus that something was practical. And I think this is what it's all about. So I'd be willing to second a motion if there was one.
We don't have one yet. Councilmember Williams?
I will take full responsibility for pushing his button. The first night on council a year ago, he initiated me by pushing my button, and I had nothing to say, so I had to make up for it. But I've made up for it
Nobody
since.
believes that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to check with the attorney on this, but I would like to echo what Phil and the rest of the council says. Council, the hours that y'all put in on this, city staff, everybody that's on the staff, city manager, city secretary, Karen, Greg, I shouldn't have started naming, I'll miss some. But also Hubba had a big input on this. Tommy Cates is president of that. And, we spent a few hours with Hubba and everybody in session. I think we got something that everybody is going to be able to live with. I don't think it's going to be anything we'll have to revisit anytime soon. But I would like to make a motion that we accept this. I'll have to read the ordinance number. Ordinance number 0-199-026-15, taking the maximum length of the motorhomes out and changing the overnight or the 8-hour period that they can stay to 24 hours. And I'm sure if we have any kind of safety hazard, our police department will inform the citizens of that and work with the citizens. I think we can just do it on a one-by-one basis.
And we will need a supermajority vote on this, so I don't think we're going to have a problem with that. Councilmember Markham?
Second.
Councilmember Quinones?
That was a second also.
Councilmember Henserling?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and several, Councilmember Arp?
I was just going to say on the maximum length that we would comply with state laws. That would, okay.
Right. That's right.
You include that in your motion?
So yes.
The state law, yes.
It doesn't matter.
And you will
It doesn't matter,
include
state
that
law.
in your second? Very well. I have a motion and some seconds. Will you please register your vote? Passes unanimously.
All right.
Public hearing, agenda item number 15.
This is also a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance, but relates to one specific piece of property located at 1400 or in the 1400 block of Carson Street. The proposed change is really two parts. One, it proposes to rezone property from M1 light industrial to M2 heavy industrial zoning, and also provide a conditional use permit, which is required to operate an auto salvage and storage facility, which is the subject of the request.
Thank you, sir. This being a public hearing, I will now open it and ask, is the applicant here? Mr. Hedgecloth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Mayor, and Council. Whoa.
Gee, thanks.
Sorry about that. I'm going to get used to that.
I think you're the first one to do that so far.
Yeah.
For a while.
I always put my foot in my mouth sometimes. I'm here representing Mr. Sturgeon on this conditional use request and rezoning request. We have met with the staff several times and complied with the fire protection and the city engineer's drainage and the water. We're extending the water line and putting in a fire hydrant. We've met with Greg on the drainage situation, and we've met with all the city staff in compliance with everything. We'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. And I think Mr. Sturgeon has a little comment he'd like to give you about the operations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak for this agenda item, Mr. Sturgeon?
I started my original business an auto garage at 4416 Northeast 28th, across from Underwood's Barbecue, over 25 years ago. I've been in business at the 1500 Carson location approximately 20 years, starting with one employee. We currently employ approximately 125 people at 6 locations throughout Texas, while our corporate offices and largest operation is still located at 1500 and 1551 Carson. I've served on a Fort Worth Citizen Zoning Committee, so I understand zoning issues to some extent. My prior request for a site plan was brought before you in September '98 for an adjoining site, at which time most of the adjoining property owners showed up to support the application. There was no opposition. I believe I've been a good neighbor, as shown by the support of my neighbors. My operation has received numerous environmental and beautification awards. I have the only legal auto recycling facility in Kennedale, and the city asked to annex my property. At the public hearing, the staff testified that they wanted to point to my operation as the standard for future applicants. I believe I am the only auto recycler in Haltom City with city water, sewer, indoor restrooms, and fire hydrants. As a direct result of my development and continued expansion at this site, I believe continued expansion of my business makes sense for the city, the neighbors, my employees, and me personally. I would like to thank those of you who came by for a personal tour. I don't believe anyone who has ever come for a tour that didn't change their mind about what an auto recycling plant could look like and how it really could be an asset to the community. Approval of this application will allow continued improvement of this already developed site by moving the fence back, screening and landscaping, reducing the noise and dust created by the crane company, and extending the fire hydrant line. Other recyclers, including those in Haltom City, have continued to operate for decades with few, if any, improvements. So I take great pride in all the improvements I have made in this part of town. I'm available and prepared to answer all your questions.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak for this agenda item? Anyone wishing to speak against this agenda item? Then I'll close the public hearing and move to the corresponding ordinance. Council? Councilmember Williams?
Yes, ma'am, I would like to comment. I went down and looked at the operation that he had. He does, when you hear the word wrecking yard or salvage yard, the first thing that comes to your mind is, dirt. He's got an excellent operation down there. It looks like he takes great pride in what he does. I hope he sets an example from the rest of the wrecking yards down there, and they'll all chime in and do the same. So I would make a motion to approve ordinance number 0-199-032-15.
Let me see. We've got some other lights. Let me see if they're for discussion. Councilmember, who's next? Jennings.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I also toured this facility and found it to be a very pleasurable place for a wrecking yard. I think Mr. Sturgeon has done a fine job there. I think that business is an asset to our city. And I, too, believe that if one were to make a pattern for what you would consider the ideal situation for an auto recycling facility, that Mr. Sturgeon's operation would definitely be the one that I would use as a pattern.
Councilmember Quinones?
I would just second a motion.
Okay, we'll come back to you guys, okay? Councilmember Art?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. I went by and saw the facility also that Mr. Sturgeon is proposing tonight, and I was just curious, is this adjacent to your 1551 property? Okay, I thought it looked like that according to the map, and I was just curious as to what's going to happen to all the overhead cranes that are down there. It doesn't matter. I'm just curious.
Do you want them?
The crane company's been there about 20 years, and I've owned the subject property where the crane company is for about a year, and I've been renting it to the crane company, and the crane company's moving.
Oh, okay.
At their own request.
That's what I suspected. That's all.
Is that it? Councilmember Markham?
I was just going to second the motion.
Thank you. I'll go back to you, Councilmember Williams.
Okay.
I can't remember. Did you get through your motion? Would you
Yes,
state
ma'am.
it again?
I did want to make a statement, though, that
Wait. I
whoever
just remembered one thing. I wanted to ask Mr. Sturgeon.
Well, go ahead and ask one.
When we were in pre-council, if someone wanted to take advantage of this new ordinance that we just passed tonight, we had to make it part of the motion, if I understood that right. Whenever we did the hard services, if he wants to be able to be using that, we have to make it part of this motion, or did I misunderstand?
I'm afraid you lost me.
No, he's
Am I right? I thought I understood that.
It sounds like he's asking if this request is subject to the ordinance we just passed on the hard surfaces.
Right.
And I think the answer we gave is that this application has a site plan attached to it, and he will be required to meet all the conditions that are shown on the site plan that is before you tonight. That becomes a part of the conditional use permit that you're approving tonight.
Okay, but will he be able to use the hard surface ordinance because we passed it the same night?
Yeah, the ordinance, as long as it's in effect, well, while he constructs whatever improvements he's going to make, he'll be subject to that.
Okay. Is that what you want?
The old ordinance, I think it's hard service.
Okay, all right. Just making sure.
Okay. Councilmember Williams?
Mr. Sturgeon, you are in agreement with that, right? Okay. I make a motion that we pass ordinance number 0-199-032-15.
Councilmember Quinones?
I'm going to second that.
Please register your vote. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sturgeon. Agenda item number 17 is also a public hearing.
This is a request for a conditional use permit to allow for the operation of an auto sales and repair facility. The property is located at the southwest corner of Beach Street and McComas Road. The request, again, is for a conditional use permit, which is required for the auto sales repair facility. I'd just like to also point out that in order to accommodate the request as shown on the site plan that accompanies the ordinance, it was necessary for the applicant to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and obtain a variance for a fence in the front setback for purposes of security. The Zoning Board of Adjustments has approved that request for a front fence.
I'll now open this public hearing and ask if the applicant is here and cares to speak on this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would you please state your name and address for the record?
My name is David Reeves. I represent Mr. Ty Bui. I work for Grant Engineering Company, 3244 Hemp Hill in Fort Worth, Texas. Madam Mayor, members of the council, we ask that you approve this conditional use permit from Mr. Bui. He's very excited and very close to getting this project kicked off. His father's been in the auto repair business for 47 years, and Ty has worked for his father for 13 years on and off, and is very excited about opening this business for himself in the city of Haltom City. And again, we ask that you approve this for Mr. Bui. I think he'll make a fine addition to your city, and I hope that you'll find that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak for this agenda item? Anyone wishing to speak against this agenda item? If not, I will close the public hearing and move to the corresponding ordinance. Council? Councilmember Quinones?
Yes. Just one question. I think I'd missed the pre-council in the notes, in the P&Z notes, it talks about the landscaping, and it just says his proposal on the landscaping. It doesn't say exactly what they're going to do with that. Are they satisfied with what he's recommending? Is that what their position is?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I'm going to move that we grant the conditional use permit as requested and adopt 0-1999-03515 as recommended.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I had one question. There is a house immediately east of that property, and I'm sure that they were notified in writing of the zoning changes of the CUP. Did you receive any type of a reply from that homeowner? Nothing at all? Okay, thank you.
Staff is shaking their head no.
Okay.
I'll come back to you in just a moment. Councilmember Quinones. Councilmember
Okay.
Henserling?
Yeah, I had a question, Mr. Reeves. I think there's, in the future, this is going to be for a showroom and a shop. So presently, the facilities that are there, is this mainly for the shop portion of the operation, or are you actually going to make the existing buildings that part of the showroom as well currently?
Mr. Reeves, I'll need you to come back to the microphone, please.
Yes, Councilman. It will be a showroom, just a small amount of showroom, but primarily shop.
The existing?
Yes.
Okay. The showroom part of the business will come when the future building is built. Is that the thinking there?
Yes, although there will be a small amount at present.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. You may want to call Mr. Bowie up.
Okay.
Let everybody see Mr. Bowie. I had a couple of questions. He's going to put in a body shop, and they're going to put in a paint booth. Which building is the paint booth going to go in? Going to go in the north building or the south building?
It will be in the north, the westernmost southwesternmost building on the property.
The blue building.
The blue building, yes. Okay. Show it on your, I don't think it's indicated as being blue on the site plan, but it's the southwesternmost.
I noticed on the north side of the property, there's a temporary electric pole out there with three plug-ins on it. Is that from a previous business?
Do you think so? Yes, it is.
Okay. And Mr. Bowie is going to go into the automobile business. Are you in the automobile business now? I want to check my competition, but
Yes, sir.
I own some property on 28th Street, which is also a used car lot. And I was kind of concerned about, you're going to put a fence on McComas Street from the east side where the residence is and run it back toward the west. I understand you're going to run that about halfway across. Is that right? In the front of the building is a fire lane, and the only parking there is straight-in parking toward the building. Is that right, Steph? When you display your cars for sale, where are you going to display them for sale at?
Oh, that parking lot there. At the parking lot there. Yeah, at the parking lot there.
In the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
Facing Beach Street?
Yes, sir.
And how many parking spaces are there, do you know?
Nine. We got total.
There's 9. So you'll have plenty of places to park your cars, plus places for your customers to park the cars as well.
Right. Yes.
This being Beach Street, this being McComas, this is where he's looking.
Karen, I think you need to get to the microphone, please.
As shown on the site plan, this being North Beach Street, this being McComas, the fire lane does run right adjacent to the North Beach Street right-of-way. Inside of that, inside the 30-foot building line, he is planning on putting his parking spaces right there, and that's also where he intends on showing his cars for sale.
Okay, on the north side of the building, the existing building that's there, where there's already a fence and a gate going in, are you going to continue to keep that fenced in as well?
Going to take it down.
You're going to take that fence down, so everything back there will be visible from Beach Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you're only going to work on customers' cars or cars that you purchase yourself to rebuild, to resell?
Yes, sir.
Is that right? And so there will be vehicles parked in that area from time to time over on the north side that will not be screened?
He's talking about this area right in there.
Oh.
Remember,
Right.
Sure. If I may speak for Mr. Bowie.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Reese.
He plans to have all automotive repair work done inside of the buildings.
Right.
Any cars that will be visible on the property will either be in drivable condition, saleable condition, or there will be customers' cars who are there to, drop off someone or pick up someone.
Okay, so there will be no wrecked cars.
Correct.
Other than what? Now, you're going to have some cars that are wrecked. You're not going to be able to get them out in the building. I'm going to tell you this from experience. And that's the reason I was going to suggest maybe it doesn't show it on site plan or something, but you may want to leave part of that fence or something, because if you start putting a car out there with a flat tire or a bent fender, from experience, they will call in on you. And I'm just trying to save you some headaches down the road, so you may want to consider leaving part of that wood fence that runs north and south, possibly from the building on out, maybe a little bit farther the length. I think it's plenty far out where it's at. And you probably take the remaining fence there all the way to McComas. But you might want to keep that temporary, or that small deal of screening there to where if you do get a car that's totaled out or very badly damaged, and that way you could park it behind there, and then the people going up and down the street won't be able to see it and call and complain on it. I'm trying to help you get where you can get in and do business, but I also know what kind of complaints come in, and I want to hedge those off before we get to them and let you know what kind of complaints come into the city. And I think you agree with me, City Manager, that probably if he kept a little bit of that screen, that it would save him some problems down the line.
Well, I think if he were going to have vehicles that were not in a state of complete repair, he may want to have them screened. I'm not sure I followed all of your conversation with regard to where the
Were you
fence was.
sleeping? No. I just didn't.
I was trying
don't
real
have
hard, but I was having a little
I
trouble.
don't have, it's completely screened now, and they've got a fence there with a screening over the fence. And he's going to be very limited with his space there, so we're going to have to make every inch that he got count.
Yeah,
But I was thinking maybe from the, and not even make it as, this is just a suggestion to him. I don't even think it's in the site plan or anything, or in this here. You know what I'm speaking at? The fence is existing, Miss Mitchell, the one that comes from the building going north.
Right.
There's a gate that opens there.
Right. We had requested that that metal fence come down in an attempt to try to make this, more aesthetically pleasing, and that was the purpose of the conditional use permit. And so staff had recommended that, but if the council's desire is to allow him to keep that, my guess is he'd be very happy about that. So it's up to, up to y'all on that one.
Well, we understood that the metal fence on the two sides, McComas and the resident fence there, were going to come off. Those are coming down. And I didn't know. I walked this out, I think, Saturday and Sunday both. I snooped all around your property. But I was thinking probably it's going to, if you start putting cars out there that the tires are flat on them or they've been hit real hard and they're crunched up, somebody's going to complain. And I'm just trying to save you a complaint. I'm not wanting to add that in, direct him to do that. It's just a suggestion. That's something he may want to do to, prevent him some problems down the line.
Mr. Williams, one of the comments that he's made as a note on this site plan is all non-operable vehicles will be kept inside the buildings. And so what would happen in this particular case, if you approve this site plan as is, if he did start putting vehicles right there, then he would be in direct violation from the site plan. So but that was something that we had all talked about.
How many vehicles can you get in those two? It's two buildings, right?
It's actually three.
Three buildings. I didn't snoop as good as I thought I did.
He's saying now that he's going to keep all of the automobiles that are about to be repaired inside the building. So that's already better than what you're suggesting. Right. So wouldn't you want to stick with the better?
Well, but I want to know, he will come into a time or two when he gets the building full, and I know this for a fact. And when the building gets full, they're going to have to go somewhere. And I'm not wanting to request that he do it. I'm just suggesting he does that. I think I had shorts on when I went around the back at the brush and stuff was fine. I didn't know what was poison ivy and what wasn't. So I stuck my head back there. It looks like you got some parking area in the back of the building that's on the south side of that.
Yeah, I would like to have that fence if that would be better. And after I get the building, the future building built up, and I take that fence down.
Right.
Is that?
I'm not telling you you have to do it, and I'm not asking this council to make you do it. I'm just making a suggestion to you.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a place on the property that I own, and I've done that for my son. There's a stockade fence across there, and if we get something that's less than desirable, we can put it back there. And even some mine that run that they think are less than desirable, but I have to point them out to them.
Okay.
Thanks.
But I want to make it something where he can live with it and he can be able to do business. I'm ready to make a second whenever.
Councilmember Markham?
I just have a couple of questions, Mayor. How long have you owned the property, sir?
In August. Almost a year. Almost a year, sir.
Almost a year?
Yeah.
And driving by there yesterday, it just seems in very close proximity to the houses. And I can't see that there would be a problem for its auto repair. But it looks like to me there could be a problem later as far as the paint and body business goes. I can see a problem there with maybe noise. There's a lot of houses that's pretty tight and pretty close in that particular area. And I just have somewhat of a problem with the paint and body. With a paint booth, the paint booth is going to meet all state and federal requirements, was it not?
Yes, sir. I have talked to the fire marshal, Mr. Charlie. Yeah, and he have came to the shop with us the other day, and he says to be okay. As long the the paint booth is approved by the city and by the state.
I don't know if you caught that. Ty was saying as long as the paint booth is approved by the state. That
right, I'm aware of that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Art?
I'm still a little confused on this as far as the parking for the employees and also the parking for the auto sales themselves. And I need a little more explanation on this. I'm looking at the building here, and I see that there's an unhashed area adjacent to it, part of which is a loading dock. But then I see at what looks like about 30 feet that's all hashed off, and it says it's fire lane. So I'm wondering where are you going to park your auto sales vehicles?
Oh, they will be in the spaces. Do you see the handicap space with some cross hatching next to it?
The handicap space
Adjacent.
to the north side of the building that's existing right now.
Yes, sir.
About north of the existing building?
Yes, that will be where the parking will be.
So you're going to go ahead and pave this even though you're not going to build a building?
We'll only pave, actually there is existing asphalt paving to cover 5 and almost 6 parking spaces. He will pave either asphalt or concrete north of that to allow for the proposed 9 parking spaces.
So you're talking about north of the existing buildings?
Yes,
that
sir.
Area?
Yes, sir.
Where are the employees going to park?
He will not have that many employees. He'll have 3 to begin with, and his auto sales will be a sub-business. His main business is auto repair. Get in a few cars, fix those cars, give them back to the customers.
Well, I'm looking for in the future. That's why I'm wondering where's his employees going to park that and the people visiting.
Right. We'll have an additional, once the future building is built, he won't have that much increase in employees. He'll have 1 more employee for a total of 4, he proposes. And then he'll have 7 additional spaces along the north boundary line, which faces into McComas Road. That will allow for a future parking of 13 spaces, which is within the zoning requirements of the city for his number of employees.
Okay,
It's a little difficult to see with all the future in the...
Well, I see what it should do. I was just thinking that what's going to be tempting is to park in all this hashed off area, which is supposed to be fire lane. That's why I was asking the question.
Right. I would just think that being illegal wouldn't happen. I would hope that wouldn't happen.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams, are you ready to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I have one short comment, or 1.5 short comments. To answer Councilman Harp's question about the 5 spots, the state law, when you obtain it,
Minimum of 5, isn't it?
you have to have a minimum of 5 places. You don't have to have any more than that. You can open up one, and there's lots of places that do that with just 5. And so I don't really see a problem with this 5 places that he has there. And one question I wanted to ask, I guess, city manager or maybe the attorney. I was looking on this location purpose zoning on this front sheet here. It says purpose. The applicant is planning to open an auto repair shop with sales at this site. When these were sent out to the neighbors, Is that what we usually put on that? Do we put that they're opening up an auto repair? Or
Yes,
do
sir.
we put that they're opening up a paint and body? Or
If it's a conditional use, all of the requested uses are listed in the notice.
Okay, so that was it's not listed on here is the reason I'm asking. Was it listed on the letter you sent out to the neighbors?
Not only was that listed, when we send out the neighbors, they get a copy of this site plan.
Okay, so they did know it was a paint and body shop,
Yes, sir.
and no one called and complained?
No, sir.
No one answered? Did anyone answer in favor?
I need to go back and check the file on that.
That's okay, I just thought maybe roughly you might know.
We did have, the one letter of opposition that came was actually with the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the reason for that was the property owner to the south, Mr. Wallace, had a concern with the request for the security fence being located along the property line, and so the Zoning Board of Adjustment tabled that pending a compromise between the two landowners, which they did come to a compromise, and that's the only opposition that we've had on this request.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would be ready to second a motion, but I do have a question. We have talked about the existing metal fence, and the way that this is stated now, Mr. Bui has the option. He does not have the option. The way I believe the CUP reads is the metal fence is coming down, and I wanted a point of clarification. Are we going to give him the opportunity to keep that up, or is this to come down? That was my only point.
It's due to come down, correct?
That's what's being proposed.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Does that answer your question?
That answered my question.
Councilmember Quinones, did you get through your motion?
I did.
All right. And Councilmember Jennings, you'd like to second that?
Yes, I would.
Very well. Councilmember Owenby?
Quick question, too. Since we are looking at possibly changing that, does that require a supermajority again or not? I just want to know now.
I don't think so.
No.
Leaving him the leverage to leave the fence up or down?
We're
is
not
that
doing
okay?
that.
Okay.
He's taking, it's coming down.
100% going to take it down?
Yes.
Okay, I just-
Right. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Would you please register your vote? It passes unanimously with Councilmember Markham voting no. Thank you.
Good luck, Mr. Bowie.
Agenda item number 19, also a public hearing.
This is also a request for a change in zoning on a piece of property which is located on the south side of Airport Freeway, where Menace Drive now terminates, and is actually on property owned by the city. The applicant, Independent Environmental Services, is actually leasing the property from the city. The intended use of the facility is a recycling, citizen convenience station, and long-term transfer station.
I now open the public hearing, and I see the applicant is present to speak. Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Fletcher Kelly. I'm with the JFK Group at 201 East Sinton and Sinton, representing ISI tonight as their engineer. And we request that you approve our conditional use permit to operate on y'all's property a citizen convenience station and a recyclery. And when you recycle, you also throw things away. I mean, you can't always recycle in the transfer station, and that's where the registration issues will eventually come in. But that's what we're asking for tonight. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And Tom Brown with ISI is here too tonight.
Do you have anything to add to that, Mr. Brown?
No, Mayor. I think the site will be an asset to the city, I believe, with the citizens being able to bring their recyclables down there, that and business owners as well that have corrugated or don't have enough for a dumpster right now would be able to bring their corrugated down to us, and we would take care of it and recycle it for them. I think it'll be a great asset to the city, and we're looking forward to getting it open.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that cares to speak for this agenda item? Anyone speaking that would like to speak against? Then I'll close the public hearing and move to the corresponding ordinance. Are we ready for a motion, Council? Councilmember Arp?
I was going to ask a question. The question I have is if a citizen wanted to bring down, for instance, some corrugated, since you mentioned that you would accept that, in the normal recycling you don't, or we don't right now. If they bring it down, is there a fee, or they just give it to you, or what do they do?
No, sir, there wouldn't be a fee for it. They would just bring it down and drop it off.
Councilmember Quinones?
Do you have a timetable when this place will be operating so the citizens will have a date they're looking at?
Well, pending council approval, we intend to have it open as soon as we possibly can, but we intend to have the building constructed by the end of November. We'd like to open up at least the drop-off center early, if that meets with council's approval. So we could begin the drop-off center at least initially, and then go ahead and construct the building and have everything up and operational, completely operational by November 30th.
That's good. I'd like our newsletter to have something on that so that people have a little lead time and know it's coming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
I'm just curious, it's our property and their facility. Who will be paying the taxes on this property, or are the improvements on it?
The lease agreement that we have with IESI requires that they pay the taxes on the property. And of course, the real estate is owned by the city. There's no tax on real estate owned by the city, but the improvements on the facility will be taxable, and that bill will be paid by the company. I might mention as well, because this is an issue that the lease agreement was entered into some time back, but the lease agreement also provides for the city to receive royalties from any dropped off material by individuals. If the facility does at some point become a what's the word I'm looking for, transfer station, then materials brought in by haulers would not be subject to the royalty, just individual drop-offs, and also recyclable goods would not be subject to the royalties, but other drop-off items, brush, large items, just anything in general that an individual citizen may bring is subject to royalty.
I noticed we had one letter from the Sling Company. Wasn't that concerning this?
Yes, you did receive a letter today expressing concern only about the portion of the operation that relates to a potential transfer station at the site. In order for a transfer station to be operated there, necessary approvals would have to be obtained from TNRCC, and it's my understanding also that the transfer operation would occur all within the building to be constructed, and I think perhaps someone with the company could better describe that process than I.
But for the TNRCC, as you said, extensive submittals for their approval, which has to meet city ordinances, number one, and as well as the state issues, and all the operations for the transfer will be inside of a building. Now, the recycling drop-off center, there'll be containers outside the building, some inside and some outside. That'll be as convenient as possible for people to literally drive up to drop things off as conveniently as possible without inconveniencing, so they'll be encouraged to use it. So that aspect, the control is a double control, the city and your staff, as well as all your ordinances, and additionally for the transfer of the solid waste will be the state of Texas, TNRCC.
Thank you.
Are these going to be fenced in?
Yes, it's my understanding that it will.
Or if somebody comes down there at night, they can't just throw stuff out?
Yes, sir. There's a kind of we're going to improve the fence that's already there. There's a chain link fence there that's been there a long time. We'll improve that on all four sides, or in conjunction with the city's operation, because we're kind of sharing an entrance as well. So together it will definitely be secure. It's important to us as well. It's valuable recyclables. We don't want to lose them.
Councilmember Arp.
I was going to make a motion, but I wanted to ask one other quick question. One of them is you're going to have the citizens, I guess you're calling a convenience station. It'd be like a big roll-away dumpster that people could dump in, I guess, for a fee. Could you give an example, like if you have a pickup load, about what that would run?
I think we addressed that all in the lease agreement, and unfortunately I didn't bring it with me tonight. Bill, do you happen to have it with you? Or, I can't remember the exact charge for the pickup truck, but that was all in the lease agreement we signed with the city.
Well, while he's looking that up, I wanted to ask, are you going to be able to like back up a ramp or something so that you can throw things out of the back of the pickup instead of having to lift everything up?
Yes, it'll be easy. It'll be easy. Just kick it out the back of the pickup truck.
Okay, that'd be good.
The lease agreement, because it was entered into a couple of years ago, doesn't specify the exact rates, but it does provide for a 25% discount off of those disposal fees at that location for Haltom City residents who have proof of residence.
Okay, I guess we'll be talking about that actually in a minute. I'd like to move that we approve this ordinance 1999-034-15.
Councilmember Henserling.
I'd like to second it, but I was just looking here at the site plan. It doesn't really indicate any sort of fencing at all in here unless it came up just a second ago. Is that something that needs to be a part of the site plan?
If you want to require it, it should be.
It's fine with going, in the construction plans, our intention is to do that. So if you want to require it, we're going to put it up anyway.
Okay.
Do you want Councilmember Arp to include that in his motion?
Well, I'm just asking from a legal standpoint
If he'd like to.
If it needs to be a part of the site plan, part of the permanent records, it needs to be on there, I would think.
And I just that is to work it out with the city because we're sharing a larger lot, just so egress and ingress works with the city as well. So we don't
So I'd say
have to block them.
based on coordination with staff as far as fencing requirements would be a suggestion.
Okay, then we'll add subject to staff comments.
Okay,
Add that.
that's a second.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 21, also a public hearing.
This is also a rezoning request. Property is located at 2206 Kings Avenue. The request is to change zoning on the property from O office to R2, which is a residential district. The purpose of the request is the applicant is wishing to sell the property, and a potential lender to a potential buyer has indicated the property would have to be zoned consistent with the use on the land for them to consider a loan.
Okay, I open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Is there anyone that cares to speak for this agenda item? Anyone speak against? Then I close the public hearing and move to the corresponding ordinance. Council, we're ready for a motion. Councilmember Markham.
Mayor, I move that we pass ordinance number 0-1999-030-15.
Councilmember Ownby.
That's for a second.
Councilmember Arp.
That's for a second.
Councilmember Henserling.
That was for a second.
I have a motion and some seconds. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we come to the heading of other business. Item number 23. I will ask Mayor Pro Tem Arp to come and sit in for me, and I will recuse myself from the next two agenda item numbers due to an income.
If it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, as you're coming forward, I'll mention just briefly what items 23 and 24 are about, as they are related matters. The city currently has a contract with Independent Environmental Services for garbage collection. We also have another separate contract with what is now Trinity Waste Systems to provide an optional curbside recycling program in the city. What's being proposed this evening is that those two services be combined under one contract, and that the provider of those services would now be Independent Environmental Services. All of these changes, incidentally, would be effective on October the 1st of this year, as the two existing contracts will expire September the 30th. The staff is recommending that you combine the two services for several reasons. One, it'll provide for ease of administration to have one company to deal with. Secondly, it'll be a little less confusing to the general public to have one company provide both services. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, at a point in the future when the city opts to bid these services again, having them all together in one contract, we believe will provide us a better opportunity to get more favorable pricing in that bid situation. What's being proposed this evening on both the recycling contract and the refuse collection contract is a continuance of the agreements that are in place for 5 years, with an option to renew at the end of that 5-year time period for 3 years, assuming that both parties are agreeable to doing that at this point in time. In terms of pricing, recycling would continue at its current price level, assuming that the participation rates in the voluntary program continue at the levels that they are today. with regard to garbage collection, for the 2.5 years that Independent Environmental Services has provided service to the city, they have requested and received no rate adjustments of any kind. They are at this point in time requesting that a 3.5% increase in rates be applied to garbage pickup effective October 1st, with one exception, and that exception would be with regard to roll-off service. Roll-off rates would be modified by a 5.5% increase rather than 3.5%, which would apply to all other types of service. With that, Mr. Tom Brown, who was up just a bit earlier, may have some additional comments. He's, of course, representing the company this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Eisen. My name is Tom Brown again. I just want to say that we're very proud to be Haltom City-based corporation. Our corporate offices are located off Airport Freeway, and our southern region offices are located off Beach Street. And we kind of feel like this is our home, and it's where we kind of began. And we appreciate the opportunity to serve the citizens of Haltom City and look forward to participating in another 5 years if we can.
If I may, if it's not out of order for me to comment or ask a question, you had mentioned your corporate offices are located in the city, and I think maybe not everyone on the council may be aware of the growth that the company has experienced the last few years. I wonder if you would give the council some idea of the number of franchises that you hold and what your billings will be for this year, just some indication of company size.
Yeah, we have grown very dramatically. I joined the company about 1.5 years ago, and since that time we've grown about 15-fold. Our revenues this year, we're at a run rate or a billing rate right now of about $150 million a year. We have 60 franchises in the state of, no, I'm sorry, that just grew by 22 the other day, didn't it? We have now 82 franchises in Texas and Arkansas area, the majority of them being in Texas. And we're very proud that Haltom City was one of the first ones that we have. And it's certainly a very important one for us. But we have grown dramatically. Our company has over 1,000 employees now, I believe, corporate-wide. 580 of those are in the Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma area. Again, that just grew by another 100. We completed an acquisition last week that I keep forgetting to put into my numbers here. But a lot of our growth has been through acquisition, but a lot of it's been through bid. We start service for the city of Frisco in August. We start city service for Bridgeport next week, and we're very proud to be serving the cities. We feel like that's our core business is the cities we serve and the population. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
We have a speaker request card also, so I need to know if your questions are in regards to Mr. Brown or not. If they are, I'll let you speak. Otherwise, we'll wait till after the speaker.
I'd rather listen till after the speaker.
Okay.
I'll hold my comments too.
Is that okay? All right. Okay, we have a speaker request from Mr. Robert Haltom.
My name is Robert Haltom, live at 4100 Denton Highway. I want to compliment the company and the administration. I think they're doing a great job in the garbage pickup for our city. Their people are very courteous and considerate. There is one thing that I would personally like to see the council consider, maybe instituting a once-a-year pickup, bulk pickup, similar to what the Fort Worth City has. People can put anything out once a year and they'll pick it up. It doesn't have to be cut to 4-foot lengths and bundled. And what this does is allow people with big limbs and just all kinds of things that they've got to get rid of to put them out, and they pick them up with a big machine, kind of like a crab picker upper, and they pick anything up and put it in a big truck and carry it off. And the reason, I mean, obviously, it gets rid of a lot of junk. And no matter what it is, if they have a certain length of time, they have to put it out a certain time of the year, and they'll pick it up, I think, in 2 days or something like that, or 1 day. But they can't leave it out there. We have the G.W. Haltom Trust properties that I am trustee of. We have quite a bit of vacant property in the city. We have an ongoing problem with dumpers. And I don't know how much money we spend, probably $2,500 a year, cleaning up illegal dumping on trust property. Usually behind the theater, behind Sam's, every place that they can get to, they dump their trash. And it's not only as unsightly, it's unsanitary, but if we had a once a year pickup of anything that people put out, and I don't know how we can afford it, but maybe in negotiations can go forward to where we could get that. And I think all the citizens, especially the older citizens that don't own chainsaws or have problems getting rid of things, give them an opportunity to get rid of a bunch of junk. The other problem is I'm finding people, and I've been told that there's people that want to get rid of something that they don't know what the rules are. They don't want to go to the length of or the expense of having a private pickup. And I understand that it's available. But it's pretty expensive to some of the older people. Or a lot of people just get rid of it. And then they go out and dump it somewhere, or they'll put it in somebody's dumpster. And I know a person that regularly goes out at night and finds dumpsters to put trash in, junk, construction junk. And, that's, I know it's illegal, but it's just not fair to the guy that's renting the dumpster. Well, anyway, had my say. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think you'll probably hear some council discussion along those same lines, because we've been talking about this quite a bit, whether to have a bulk trash pickup day like we have in the past. Problem with that, it always seems like there's one person that the day after they've been by is when they put it out, and it sits out there for a year. I agree with that. Yeah, we got code enforcement. That's one of the things you'll probably hear. One of the things I'd like to propose is, since we're going to be having a facility down here right off of Menace, to allow the people from the city one day and during the year, like one of the weekends and during the spring, to have a free dump day if they show their water bill. That's my proposal. Let's see what other people have to say. Councilmember Henserling?
Mr. Haltom, I agree with you. That's one of the biggest comments I hear about our trash program is we don't have that once or twice a year pickup that we always had. And I think the main issue we deal with here is getting debris and trash off the streets, and which program, which method nets the most volume of junk and trash off of our streets. I think we found and from testimony that doing the way we're doing it now, although it is inconvenient to cut it up in sections and bundle it, it's kind of an educational thing. It is an inconvenience. You asked the question, how much would it cost? Well, it's going to cost 59 cents per household per month to institute a 2 times a year type of bulk pickup around the city. The other issue we have to think about is timing and communication. For instance, getting word out what day your street's going to be picked up. Well, what if you miss that particular pickup that day of the week, and it sets out there for a considerable amount of time? Yeah, and we've got code compliance people that can go out and write a ticket. Then you've got the city that are getting on to the folks because they missed their particular pickup. I think what Mayor Pro Tem ARP has suggested here is maybe a good happy medium. I asked the question, if you did have a bunch of brush, you just cut down a bunch of your trees and you put them out there and it was a truckload full, how much would that cost for you to have ISI come and pick that up? And that's roughly about $30 to have them come and pick that up for you. If you're in a position where you yourself or have it transported to the site, it's about half that cost. It's about $15. It's, if you spend it all day and you cut down a tree and you need to get rid of a large amount of whatever, I don't think $30 is too unreasonable. It really may be a burden on some of the older folks and maybe the different parts of town. But once again, if we institute a deal at the site once or twice a year where we showed our water bill, I don't know what that cost would be, but it would allow people to do it. But then again, the elderly, how are they going to get it there to begin with either? So there's a lot of ins and outs to this particular issue. I would like to see it, but then again, I don't want to see piles of trash around our city and have our city, beating the brow of these citizens because they missed their date. I don't know. I'd like to think about adding a caveat to this that says we could come once or twice a year, at no cost. I don't know what that cost would be, and it may not fit into tonight's plans to pass this ordinance, but it may offer the citizens a little better value.
Understand it, and I may be wrong, but I don't think it's a standard $30 charge. You have to have them come out and look at the trash or whatever, and then they do this. That's right. So people, they have no idea what it's going to cost. They might be thinking hundreds of dollars, and they're not going to spend that money. They'll take it somewhere else.
That is true. I mean, it does vary on the size of the pile, obviously. Just hang on. What we're experiencing right now, though, and what we experienced for the last 4 or 5 months is that the average charge is less. That we're charging people in the town right now is somewhere around $800 a month. So right now, that service that we provide is costing the citizens about $10,000 a year on an annualized basis. So, and as you mentioned, Mr. Henseling, the 59 cents, if you multiply that times the number of homes, is going to run your bill up to about $75,000 a year. And the reason why it's going to be more expensive is because people that are cutting it up now will quit cutting it up, and they're going to drag the trees to the curb, and the volume is going to increase dramatically. I believe that the town is in a good, clean condition right now. Pretty much. I mean, you see a pile here and there occasionally, but I think if we go back to letting citizens pile it out there or a twice-a-year pickup, I think you're going to see large piles sit out there for a long period of time. We can do it either way. We're flexible. We want to provide the right service to the citizens of Haltom City. It's your choice, but I would advise against it.
You mentioned before, Mr. Brown,
yes,
about $12 a cubic yard.
That's correct.
And a typical truckload will handle 2.5 cubic yards. So it's about $30 charge for a typical. Is that like a 1-ton truck, or is that the big double tandem?
That's a pickup truck.
It's a pickup.
Yeah.
Okay. So for $30.
Yes, sir.
That was level with the bed, right?
I don't know exactly. Is that level with the bed? Okay. Yes.
Okay.
And code enforcement goes out with us and helps us determine, I believe, the size of the pile.
Well, the last thing we want to do is pile more on code enforcement. We're in dire straits with our code compliance department and keeping people there, and to dump some more on them.
They do that now.
Well, I know they do that now, but if we changed and went back to a different way, it would even burden them even more so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Williams.
2 or 3 questions. Can an outside company bring a roll back into Haltom City right now and dump it? And
a roll-off, no, they cannot. The only persons who can provide garbage service in the city are ones that have a franchise with the city at this point. Independent Environmental Services is the only company that has that.
Is there a reason why we're just letting one company do that? Because I know there's no competition there.
Yeah. Well, no one else has asked other than through the bid process, which is a process that every company that's in the garbage business in this area had an opportunity to participate in and did participate in.
Okay, and the twice-a-year pickup that we did, what length of time did it take to do that?
Several years ago, you mean when the service was being provided, it was supposed to happen in a month, but I don't recall a time that it ever only took a month. It usually ended up taking 6 to 7 weeks to complete.
59 cents a household based on 10,000 households. I don't know exactly what that comes out.
About $75,000 a year. Because you got to multiply that times 12 months.
Yeah. And as a further indicator, current monthly rates that aren't, not counting the sales tax for garbage collection, is about $6, I guess, so that's roughly a 10% increase to go back to a circumstance where you'd have the twice a year collection.
I don't have a problem with the, I know I've heard 2 or 3 comments. The people, you tell them when they can put the garbage out, and they miss the date. I know you made the comment about code enforcement's snowed under. We got 2 code enforcement officers now, whereas 3 months ago we had 1, and that's all we had up to 3 months ago. 1's all we've ever had. So we've got double code enforcement. Y'all keep saying that there's no problem. Everything's pretty well cleaned up. I do a lot of driving south of 28th Street in Belknap, and there is a problem down there. Lots of brush, lots of stuff sitting out. Houses. There's one house down there between Belknap and 28th Street. It's got brush stacked 4 foot high, 9 foot long. It's not tied. It's not. It's going to sit there. And I'm not going to call and report the people and turn them in, you know. But if we can't get the garbage company to do this, when we come into the new budget time, I'm going to push to cut something out of the budget to get our citizens something to pick up their garbage. I don't know if the city will have to buy a truck and buy a clamp to pick it up. I know we got a clamp down at the cemetery today picking up trash down there with an open-end dump truck. I don't know if we want to get in the trash business, but to get this city cleaned up, we're going to have to give the people an opportunity to get their stuff hauled off. Now they don't have it, and they're not doing it. You go over where I live, or you go to some new houses out north of 820, you don't have the trash. And yet, you know, as people start living there and accumulating, it's going to come up. And I'm not trying to drag y'all down. I need to do something for the citizens where they can get rid of their trash once a year. I don't know if that would kill you, but with the citizens paying taxes, they already say, you know, well, we pay taxes for this, we pay taxes for that. And if we have to, I'll try to get something in the budget where we can pick it up ourselves. And we're really not in the trash hauling business. The dumpster, you're having the only company to unload. I think it's probably in your favor. I don't have a, you know, if that's what the majority of the city council wants, I won't fight that. But we're going to have to do something. If we don't get a way to pick the trash up, Sunday evening, 8:20, I'm at Belknap and Carson, going eastbound. Coming across Carson from north of Belknap going south is a pickup with a trailer full of trash, bicycle frames, old tires and wheels, going south on Carson from Belknap. Now, there's no restaurants down there. They weren't going down there to eat. I know where they were headed. They were headed to Elliott Reeder Road or somewhere down there where they can dump the stuff. And if we don't have somewhere where we can dump it, I know you're going to put the apparatus in where we come dump that. You told Gene average truck.
Yes, sir.
It's 2.5 yards. He's talking about a pickup truck. That's what he's talking about.
Correct.
Bed level, not over the bed. Bed level is about $30. The truck you're talking about, the tandem truck, is $168. Holds 14 yards. But, and I'm not hammering on you, but I need something where the citizens can get their trash hauled off. And it's not like trash that they're, you know, it's come up now. They've had it there for years. And if our code enforcement cannot go out, and if we can't educate these people by water bill, by the quarterly paper or whatever, and let them know when that's going to come out, give them the opportunity to put that out. And if they don't put it out, then send code enforcement out and go through, you know, the proper channels to find them. That's not my choice to do that.
Yes, sir.
But if they don't want to abide by the law, like Mr. Haltom says, business owners, the plumber next door to me, every weekend we come in and his dumpster's mounted up over the top. And, you know, there's no way to stop it.
If I might comment, and I think maybe some of your observations are a good indication that we maybe need to publicize again what standard garbage service gets you in town. The pickup load with the trailer you described, all of those things are things that are picked up twice a week at every household in town. Now, if it was somebody coming from out of town to dump, and we don't know, I guess, where that person was coming from, but if it was somebody who was a resident of the community and that was household garbage, they can put it out twice a week and it'll get picked up. I think the only issue, or the only thing that doesn't get picked up twice a week, is brush that isn't cut and bundled, and that's kind of where the rub is. And if we haven't done a very good job of explaining this take-all service, then maybe we need to make another run at it in our newsletter, and we'll certainly do that, because if there are people who still don't understand that if you have things like that, like the kind of things that are getting put in people's dumpsters, if they're put in dumpsters by residents of this community, they don't have to go to the trouble of sneaking around in the dead of night to put that stuff in somebody's dumpster. All they got to do is put it on their curb,
right,
and it'll get picked up.
But is it 4 foot? Do you feel like that's the maximum your truck can handle?
The hopper is about 6 foot wide, but the packer mechanism is not quite that wide. So it's 4 feet in length, and the weight issue becomes in play if you get a big log out there as well. But whatever our people can pick up and put in the back of a truck, they're supposed to do. And
how do you get a refrigerator or a couch in there? That's
refrigerator is not a problem as long as it's tagged with the Freon removed.
I mean, is refrigerator taller than 4 foot?
They probably are, yeah. It fits in. The packer mechanism will crunch up that. It won't crunch up a log.
Right.
It'll actually crunch up a refrigerator, though, and it'll crunch up a couch or bicycle or anything like that. If we can fit it in the back of our hopper, we put it in there.
Well, I think I think you keep your equipment good. I know some that we've had in the past. They come down the street. I notice your trucks are staying away from the curbs. I don't know if you've been instructed by the city manager to do that, but I have started watching that. They are staying away from the curbs. They are doing a good job. They're not leaking fluids and stuff like the other ones were, and they're not as noisy as the ones in the past.
Thank you for noticing.
But I am going to tell you, I'm going to give you some flowers to go with this stuff that I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
But I need to get something to where I don't know if we can move it up to 5. Somebody says they got something out there. Well, they measured it was 5 foot. Well, if it's 5 foot there, go ahead and pick it up. I mean, 4 foot's a guideline. Now, if it's 6 foot, 7 foot, no. But we got to get something. If we plan to clean the city up, and I was newly appointed to the beautification board, and since they put me on that, I'm going to do a good job on it. And this is one thing I'm going to start. The people putting the trash out. I may not ever get elected again, but we'll get some streets in Haltom City cleaned up.
Well, if it's not too big to fit in the back of the truck, they're instructed to put it in. So they may be making a judgment out there that they shouldn't make. But if it's not too heavy for 2 people to lift or to fit in the back of our truck, they should be putting it in there. Yeah. And we can get that out through a newsletter, like Mr. Eisen said.
You may need to do it with just like a diagram or something and show them,
I know when we went to this type of contract about 2.5 years ago, we did a lot of publicity then, and I think we've done some in the interim, but it sounds like it's time again, because
sure.
if people are going to all the trouble to load this stuff up and dump it on somebody else's property, and it's their household garbage, there's just no reason in the world to do that. And it's not only is it expensive to somebody else, it's not necessary either. And for that matter, if somebody has garbage or something that for whatever reason they don't want to put on the curb, within a few months they'll have an opportunity to take it to a facility here in the community, and if they have a vehicle to load it up and haul it somewhere to dump it on somebody else's property, they would have the ability for a much cheaper price to dump it or drop it off at this drop-off facility or convenience station that's provided for in the agreement as well.
Councilmember Williams, I have a lot of the lights on, or is that it?
Yeah, I'm thirsty to get somebody else.
Talk to me not. Councilmember Jennings.
Watch me knock mine over. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I was looking at the written words here that we were provided with, and it says that IESI is proposing to provide a citywide cleanup twice a year for an additional 59 cents per home per month, we're talking $7.08. I'm certainly not a mathematician, but if I'm given the option of paying $7.08 over a period of a year, that's about 2 cents a day. And if you look at that as an insurance policy versus it's going to cost you anywhere from $30 to $60 or higher to dump a truckload, if you took it down to your establishment to dump a truckload, I would certainly like to spend the 2 cents a day. I can see the problem that certain people are going to have that do not generate any large trash. They're paying 59 cents for someone else to dump their trash. I am in agreement with some of the things that have been said here today. I don't believe that the problem we used to have is as prevalent as it was. I think we're cleaning up our city a little better than we were in the past. So if it's not broke, I say don't fix it. The only thing that I would like to do is possibly give some people the opportunity, along with these 2 times a year at 59 cents per home, I would like to give people the opportunity to also take stuff to your facility and dump it once or twice a year for free. You still get your 59 cents. We win on both ends this way. People get 2 times a year picked up on scheduled days, and then if they have something large that they need to take down there, other than on those scheduled days, they have an opportunity twice a year to go down there with, say, their water bill or whatever and receive a free dump. I think that that's a good trade-off for the city. I think it's good for the citizens, and I don't believe it's going to adversely affect your company in any way, provided that we pass the rest of this.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Quinones.
Several things. Like every council member, I've heard people say, what happened to the twice a year, and we've gone down that already. And I've also heard a similar number of people say, I'm glad you don't have that, because for the reasons that have been said, that so often you have people who put it in the day after or 2 months ahead, and then whenever they get a complaint, then you've got a neighborhood squabble, because then you have that citizen saying, I have the right, and the bulk pickups coming up, and on and on. And it seems like what we're getting to is we're trying to get to every single contingency that can possibly happen, and whenever you get into that, then you begin to get into problems. I hear the need mentioned about this twice-a-year bulk pickup and how the cost is 9 cents a day and all of that. The way I see it, the way it has been working has been somewhat effective. It's not 100%, obviously. It would never. I don't think we can say that about anything. I would like to see the bulk pickup, but I don't think the citizen should bear the cost for that. I think the illustration given by Councilmember Williams, if I may make the comment, if someone piles it up out there and it's not picked up, or it's 2 months premature, and then code enforcement goes out and nothing is done, that the city should come in and pick it up and do something about that. I think what we're doing then is we're just almost rewarding neglect, and I don't want to encourage that. I don't want to give people that opportunity to do that.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to, on the other hand, I don't want to, I'd like us to give this convenience shop an opportunity to see what it'll do. I mean, given the fact that we've had 3 years under the contract now, there have been some kinks and things, and they've been worked out. But we haven't had this place yet. When that place opens up, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is going to be taken by the citizens, or they're going to find a way to get it down there.
Yes, sir.
I know that what a lot of people say is the nearest place they could take it is Kennedale or somewhere else, and it costs too much. So they find a way to, as they're driving down a country road, to throw it off the back of the truck. And I think over time, as I myself, and I'm sure many others do, they put out things periodically. I think you run, if your idea is to beautify, and I think that's the secondary thing behind all this. I think we're providing a service and leave it at that. But I think if you have people storing up stuff for twice a year, you end up keeping more trash than getting rid of it. I think you have an opportunity twice a week to get rid of a lot of things. Now, I have heard the complaints from citizens, and again, it go back to education. And if many people still think that we operate under a two-time-a-year bulk, that is, that's clearly something that we've changed 3 years ago. And you know, I don't know what we could do. We could print reams of paper and tell people, but there comes a point when, you've saturated the public out there with this information. I don't think we need to subsidize. I hear what Councilman Jennings is saying about the 59 cents, and on its face it's probably reasonable. I mean, if a citizen wants to pay for it, Let me ask this question. Now that I've said that, if as far as bulk pickup, if y'all were to come out and picked it up in the charge, what would it charge on average? Comparing it to the past years when we had the twice-a-year pickup, I know the size of the bulk varied. What would a charge like that be?
It's hard to do an average. I think probably an average pile is 4 or 5 cubic yards. I'm not exactly sure how much an average would be. I mean, there are piles out there that are 12, 15 cubic yards. And then there's piles that are 2 cubic yards or 1.5. I mean, it's really hard to do an average. The thing I guess that I keep saying is that right now those charges to the citizens are amounting to only about $800 a month. So that would be, what, 60 cubic yards, somewhere along the 65 cubic yards is what's being generated or at least cleaned up per month. It's all we're dealing with here. Everything else is either being picked up or maybe, as Mr. Williams is referenced, may be going somewhere else, but it's not. It's being collected, and so it's hard to come up with an average.
Well, the reason
I haven't really looked at that, sir.
The reason I asked the question is because rather than making it where all the citizens have to support a handful of people, let's see if there's some way we can arrive at a scheme where if citizens want to have that. They say, I want to have my twice-a-year bulk, and I'm willing to pay whatever dollars a month or a week or whatever it is towards that, and so that I could use that service in the future, fine. Then you come by at that period I'm just trying to find a way for people to feel like they have to have it, pay for it.
If they want to do it once a week and put it in a pile out there that doesn't fit in our trucks, we'll come by once a week and do it for $12 a cubic yard right now. I mean, that's available to them at any time during the year. So it is something that they could utilize now if they choose to, where they wouldn't have to do the cut-ups and cutting up 4 feet lengths or anything. So, I mean, it's available to them now at this point.
Okay. I've often also heard the problem with the 4-foot bundles and having to be tied and all that. And I've had some tell me they don't pick them up, and I've had some say they measure it at 4, and if it's slightly over, don't pick it up. And I've seen, logs out there 6 foot that they did pick up. So I quite honestly don't know how to fall on that. I mean, from I think the net result is that generally they do pick it up. And we're all interested in trying to find the most service for the cheapest or no cost for the citizens.
Absolutely.
I mean, they want to hear us say that, and we want to do that.
Sure.
And I think when this convenience center comes on board, I think we'll see that will take away a lot of these things we've been talking about. Or at least I hope it does. If it doesn't, we may have to go back and look at that.
And we'd be more than happy to do that
And
at a future date.
I noticed that it's 4 or 5 or 3 year or whatever. We may want to look at something like that. But
we could add that at any time you want. I mean, if the convenience center goes in and y'all just don't feel like it's working, I mean, we can come back and we're more than happy to do that at any future date during the contract.
I would like to do something like that, is look at some bulk, in addition to what we're normally doing in the future, maybe revisit it here at some time down the road, see if it's how that's working. And along the lines, set up something that will make it that those who use it pay for it. I'm quite honestly tired of, a handful or a few people, ended up forcing every citizen to pay and subsidize something. I'd rather those who want to use it, let them pay for it. And you'll find when that's the case that they find creative ways to get rid of it, of taking care of what they need to do. And I do believe that. So, with all those things said, I think I would add the condition that I don't have any problem with what's recommended, but I do think we want to look at this, heavy bulk, or whatever you even want to call it, twice a year thing in the future, that we have the option to do that, 6 months or a year from now.
That's no
So
problem at
after
all.
this convenience center opens up.
It's no problem at all.
Councilmember Owenby.
Yeah, Mr. Brown.
Yes.
What is your position with IESI?
I'm the region vice president. I cover Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas.
Okay, you've been with them a year and a half. I want to find out what position you were in that you had to take this kind of abuse from us.
Well, I have been in the garbage business for 22 years.
Okay, so you're accustomed to some of this?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's good.
I don't consider this abuse.
Well, I'm not finished yet.
Okay, I reserve my judgment.
It's been 6 months ago at least, we had a survey brought to us talking about the amount of senior citizens that are in our city. And one of the things Mr. Haltom was talking about some of the people who can't necessarily get out and cut everything up and bulk it up and put it up. And we have a large percentage right now still in our city of elderly citizens, of more mature citizens, or however we should phrase that. But that is part of the concern. Those are the people who, even if they had a truck, they can't load it up. And that's why, yeah, it's been a long time since we had the regular pick everything up, but you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks always either. Okay, and there's a lot of people out there who, John's run into them obviously. I know, I think everybody on council has, who still, Dewey will tell you the same thing, who still go, well, when are they going to pick it up again this year? You know, did I miss it last year? And of course, part of my concern too is this, is I think, and this is just what I'm thinking though, I think the reason we're hearing a lot more citizens complaining about it is because at their houses it is piling up, okay? Because they're not educated yet, as Tom was talking about yet. They're still not clearly aware that you guys will pick up a good majority of the stuff any day of the week. I do know this too though, y'all are in business to pick up trash but to make money.
Yes,
okay? And I wasn't part of the negotiating, and last I checked, recycling was a profitable business, gentlemen, or y'all wouldn't keep acquiring more companies, okay? And so what I would like to see is some kind of a compromise brought to the table where it's a win-win situation, all right? Because I do know this is a bandwagon everybody stood on years ago, and the ones who were smart actually started doing it when everybody else was still complaining about it, and they said, let's see, I got to recycle. It's not really voluntary, but I'm going to have to pay for it, okay? Well, from that point on, if you were really sharp, which at least some of y'all in this room were, okay, you said, we need to get into that business because they're going to have to recycle and they're going to have to pay us. So we're going to get paid for picking up the stuff, and then we're going to recycle it, and I hope we're going to make some money when we recycle it. Now, I don't know if that end of the business is profitable or not, but I'm having to assume y'all aren't doing it for nothing, okay? So if that's the case, I'd really like to see y'all come back to the table with something that said instead of 59 cents a family, which is not a lot at all, where if we were going to give you both services to provide, yeah, it sells us benefits too. I sell them every day. You know, single billing, single vendor, sounds really good, and it does. But the truth is, it also makes a single bill for y'all for twice as much too. Not twice as much, but an enhancement. And if you enhance it 10%, somewhere in there lies the margin that we can probably get that service provided for us without having to pay for it at least once a year, and then probably give them the opportunity to come down there and dump it the other time for the ones who are young enough and can. And that's what I'd like to see.
I would like to see that as well. Unfortunately, recycling is not as profitable as you might think.
Well, I had a note here on slim margins. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, we're either paying to get rid of it, or the processing cost the processing cost outweigh the material. And so we still have to go collect it house to house, provide the bins, and we're getting virtually nothing for the material. The plastic pricing has gone way down. Corrugated, for a brief period of time, about 3 or 4 years ago, hit a real nice high, but it hasn't been there anywhere near since, and it's coming back up a little bit now, but it's such a volatile market, it's hard for anyone to guess what that does. And of course, the curbside program doesn't address corrugated anyway. But plastics are very, very difficult to get rid of. Any plastics, even 1s and 2s, are not easy to get rid of, and everything else is much more difficult. We're having to pay people to take some of this stuff, and so it's not as all of us would hope that the markets have taken hold, and it would be more of a sought after item. It's a supply and demand business, and there's apparently more supply than there is demand, and I still see very few places using recycled paper for their stationery or business cards or anything else. And it's a market-driven program, and it's also driven by what they can generate the stuff from raw materials for, obviously. So aluminum cans obviously have some value. Unfortunately, it takes a heck of a lot of them to make a ton. And a lot of people choose to recycle those on themselves, and they keep those in the garage and take them down somewhere and get some money for them once or twice a year. So we don't get all those. Newspaper kind of comes and goes like corrugated does as well, and the glass markets are terrible and have been for a long time.
Copper and all those kind of things.
We don't pick up the copper.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking, though. If
Yes,
you
sir.
do bulk trash, you're picking up the bulk. It's the same thing that they were going to bring to you anyway, where they were going to pay to bring to you so that you could get them to sort it out and get the good materials out of it. That's why I'm just saying, it looked to me like, it seemed to me, if it's not that big of an amount, that we should be able to get somewhere in the middle on there at least, by awarding both contracts to the same group. I don't think you're going to share your exact margins with me. I wouldn't expect you to. Mr. Haltom?
One of the biggest problems I think all of us have is disposing of items that are unwanted. Doesn't seem like anybody wants tires. And that's one of our big problems. We have tires dumped everywhere, and the reasonable part is, what is the charge for a tire disposal? Most people won't even take it. But more than $3.
It's standard $5 to $10.
Yeah, I think so. I know I have a lot of tires too.
Somebody else's property. It's a big problem. Old tires. The dump grounds don't want them, and they discourage it by raising the price to fees from receiving those tires. What is it now?
I'm not sure what they charge, sir. It is, Fletcher, isn't it illegal to dump tires in a municipal landfill?
And in our city, we have a lot of industry going on in residence, lots of it. And a lot of this trash is generated by businesses being carried off of their own repair business in their driveway. They're doing woodworking and all kinds of businesses taking place in the home, in and around the home, and they're good. The city doesn't get any sales taxes out of any of those services. And I know the guy fixed the lawnmower, got signs out on the tree. Bring your lawnmower to my backyard and I'll fix it. He's got to get rid of the lawnmower. So, I mean, we have a city with a problem getting rid of.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to say is there is enough stuff that's still around the houses that can't be transported by enough people from what I've seen and observed, as well as other council members. I do realize y'all didn't get in business to go broke, okay?
No, sir.
But at the same time, that's why I'm saying, if at the worst, it seemed like we ought to be able to get maybe one free pickup a year and then, or work somewhere close to that, or try.
Well, I'd like to think we could do that, sir, but that's not possible.
It's absolutely not
sir.
possible.
No, not for free, no, sir. And again, recycling is a good thing, and we'd like to all keep things out of our landfills, but unfortunately, the markets have not, the demand for the services is not, demand for recycled products has not kept up with the supply. And we're seeing a lot of cities get away from curbside recycling altogether, just ban programs. Forest Hill did that just recently. There's just, it's just not profitable, sir.
Well, I was always told, if you're going to end up in the stars, you do shoot for the moon. If you don't ask, you're not going to
Yes,
get
sir, I understand that.
All right.
I appreciate that.
They'll do a good job. I got to ask.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah.
I don't know that it makes you feel any better, Mr. Ownby, but I would tell you that in our conversations, which were pretty lengthy with Mr. Brown and other representatives of the company, we talked about a lot of these things, and of course we're concerned about financial impact on residents of the community, and it was for those reasons, and I guess it's something that I didn't mention in the oral summary earlier, but was mentioned in your written material. After October 1st, the company agrees that there will be no request for rate adjustments for a full 2 years. And you may recall under previous contracts that we've had, there was an annual adjustment based upon the CPI. We've not seen that in 2.5 years from this company. At the end of 3 years, there'll be a 3.5% increase, but then there'll be nothing again guaranteed for 2 years. So we've tried to take into account those concerns, and we hope at the staff level we've gotten the best deal we can get. And if you can get more out of them, more power to you, I guess.
Well,
but we certainly hope we've accomplished that. And if not, then we'll sure stand to be corrected.
Well, the good news is sometimes the bad news. I was always told never spill your candy in the lobby. And when I hear about the new acquisitions and the growth and everything, that doesn't sound negative, guys. That sounds like a good opportunity to say, y'all getting more money. Well, if you're getting more money, we just want a little rollback from that,
Yes, sir,
so we
I
don't have to
understand.
spend quite as much.
Believe me, Mr. Eisen is picked on me now. Okay. We've negotiated talked back and forth for, 3-4 months now. And I believe, and I stand corrected if I'm wrong, but I believe our rates, even with this increase, are less than what you were paying 3 years ago. Is that correct? Or?
You know, I don't recall the rates from 3 years ago. They could be slightly less. I'd say with the increase, they'll be similar to what they were 3 years ago, but I do not recall exactly.
And we're committing to another 2 years beyond that. So we're trying to keep your rates as low as we can, and I think we're doing a pretty good job, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Is that it? Okay, I guess I'll take my turn because everybody else has been able to speak that wanted to. And I see a couple repeats up here. What I wanted to ask you, Mr. Brown, is what you're proposing to us right now is a 5-year contract.
Correct.
With a 3-year option. So we're looking at an 8-year contract.
Well, the option is mutual. I mean,
Right,
we
I
would
know,
both
but
have
I mean,
to
we're
agree.
potentially looking at doing business for the next 8 years.
Yes, sir.
Do you have the authority to grant a 1 day a year to where the people in the city could go down to your convenience station and dump the trash, like say a Saturday, like in March or April, when most of the people would be cutting brush and they don't want to cut it up into four-foot pieces because they got a pickup load or whatever?
I have the authority. I'm just not sure I have the money.
I mean, we're just talking about your people doing 1 day,
I mean, I
having
don't.
a few extra, rollaways or whatever you call them, roll-offs, I guess.
If we could somehow limit the volume, I would certainly be amenable to doing something
Well,
along those
leave
lines.
somebody
but
with a Haltom City water bill.
I still wouldn't have any idea what that volume would be.
I don't think it's going to be that many, but because I think you can hear that everybody up here is having a problem.
Yes, sir.
So to try to cinch this,
I'd like to request that we go forward with it as is tonight and revisit down the road if we could. The twice-a-year pickup, we could certainly institute it any time during the contract, but.
yeah, but you're asking for us to give you more money. I'm asking for you to absorb it. That's
I know.
two different things.
I know.
I know.
I know. And I'm saying I can't afford to absorb it. I don't know what I'm absorbing, and that's part of the question that none of us can answer here tonight.
Well, all I know is that I have a friend that lives in Hearst, and they can take any time they want to. They
Yes,
have
sir.
a free deal. So all I'm asking for is 1 day out of the year.
Well, if they're paying more for garbage service, it may be built into those rates. I'm not exactly sure if they are or not, but they probably are.
Well, how much would it take to have that 1 day then?
59 cents a family.
59 cents. 30 cents.
Well, I don't know.
No, that's if they come around and pick it all up at everybody's house.
Yeah.
That's what that was. I'm asking about a 1 Saturday, for 4 hours or whatever, 8 a.m. to noon. That's all I'm asking for.
I don't
Give
know
me a
what
break,
that would
Bob.
cost us, Gene.
You
Come
can.
on down.
Okay. Councilmember Henseling?
Well, I did want to ask this. I know IESI's been great, and I say great, and let me make sure I'm okay by saying great. In certain instances, like Great American Cleanup,
Yes.
bag-a-thons, you've got these rollouts everywhere around town, and I know we did a cleanup several years ago at Little Fossil Park. Y'all donated the bin.
Yes, sir.
And we filled it up way over, and y'all came and picked it up. Do y'all charge us for those sort of services on those? I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't believe we are. Specifically, we donate a lot of services like that to the city.
One of the things that is going to get renewed focus in Haltom City, and it's cleaning up Haltom City, and
Yes.
whether it be in geographic areas around town. I know Crime Board's looking at doing some real targeting down in the south part of town in District 1, as we say.
Mhm.
And we're going to need situations where we need those rollouts probably on a lot more frequent basis than we have in the past. And I know it's not free, but I'm just curious. This other thing I don't want to lose in this, I want to have a goodwill relationship with
Yes.
ISI, that y'all can feel like you can do that sort of thing. And we're really going to task you in the future on that, in that regard. And would that be something that y'all would charge us on a per rollout? I mean, if we passed a certain point, is there a per rollout bin charge?
We'll work with you as much as we can. I mean, I don't know what kind of volume you're talking about. I know we do several free dumpsters a year for the city. We plan to continue that. We certainly don't want to diminish anything we're doing in the city right now. So.
Okay. Well, there's some real specific things that are be coming up in various parts of town, and I didn't want that to go out the window.
No,
I don't
sir.
want
No,
to,
sir.
get in a real tit for tat sort of thing with ISI.
No,
But,
sir. That's.
I don't know if we're close enough. I don't know if this is something that we need to consider more. I like the idea of having it one day, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, one day for us to go. At least that gives the opportunity. And in that one day, if we have volunteer groups that need to support some of these older parts of town, we could support them in that way with volunteer people to get it down there. So that maybe is an option. So I would like for you to think about what it would cost or impact it would have to have that one day no charge sort of thing. So with that, I don't know if we're to that point with them, if we need to continue or if we need a motion. Where are we at on this?
Got one more light on. Let's see what Councilmember Williams has to say. I'm kind of agreeing with you because I don't think we're getting enough bang for our buck to commit to 5 to 8 years. Councilmember Williams?
I'm saying this in a friendly manner, and Bob, don't come up here. We could rebid this.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want to rebid it.
No, sir.
Because I like your quiet trucks, I like your clean trucks, and I like you driving down the middle of the road.
Thank you.
Any of your other complaints, I can call in. If I don't, I can call my friend, and he can call in for me. I know you got 59 cents is the cost. I don't know how you came up. It's just like when we come up with a price of $9.95. How do we come up? That's a price we pick out of the air. But we know it's what we've got to do to keep our doors open. I know y'all are doing the same. I know that it's pretty apparent that you're not going to want to make a twice-a-year pickup for nothing.
No, sir.
I've got that feeling from consensus that we took here. And I think you probably got the consensus we don't want to pay 59 cents. I mean, 59 cents doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it does when you go times. Plus, it mounts into a lot of money.
I think it's a lot of money.
And I have you got 22 years in the trash business, and I don't have any. So I really don't know what your overhead are, And I know with the government stepping in, making y'all abide by different deals for the EPA and stuff, I know it's tough to stay in business. I know we're not getting anywhere. I was fixing to ask you if you haul off dead horses because we got one here. I would like to probably continue this to the next meeting and maybe had time to think it over. I'd read the second page on it where it said the 59 cents, and I didn't think 59 cents was that much money to pick it up. But apparently $7 a year is not much money to a man that's been in the garbage business for 22 years or a man that owns property in Haltom City. But we've got people that are old.
Sure.
We've got people that are on fixed income. And like Tom says, if we fix it where the people that use it pay for it, but there's no way to fix it where they can pay for it. And an option I would like to look at, I'd like to have a little time to think about, though, would be like maybe a once-a-year pickup. And maybe I think if y'all asked for some sort of a 3.9% increase, was that what it was? Or
3.5.
3.5. I didn't mean to jab you with 4%. 3.5%. I know you got to have increases. It costs money to operate those trucks. Are expensive. I would like to have a little more time to think about it. I don't want to tell you no, I'm not going to do it. I want to tell you yes, I am. If I voted on it tonight, I'd probably abstain because I'm not sure. But I would like to try to get a little bit more for our citizens. Pre-council, I had mentioned maybe putting some rollbacks off at various places where people could go in and, they could load back their pickup and they carry it down there. And some people don't feel comfortable with going down south of 121 down in that area down there. But I think maybe we can probably come to an agreement where we could probably get a once-a-year pickup, get our code enforcement. That's not your problem. That's our problem. To where if the people put it out at the wrong time, we need to educate them before the time comes. But I'm ready to make a motion to probably carry it on to the next meeting.
Okay, we'll defer back to you. I got it. Well, I had one light. Now I got a Christmas tree. Councilmember Markham.
Well, we've heard from one end of the spectrum to the other tonight, and I would go along with Councilmember Williams. I would like a couple of weeks to think about it, let both sides think about it, and go from there.
Good.
That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Owenby.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat on you anymore either. As a matter of fact, I do want to tell you, I told Joyce sitting here a while ago while we were talking, I've heard it said too many times in my own life and seen it in everybody else's life. People, even us, have a tendency to forget what people do for you and only remember what you don't.
Right.
And we don't want you to think that we don't appreciate what y'all have done for us over the years, okay?
Thank you.
We're just trying to look out for the city as best as possible.
And I understand that, and I do believe that the re-education program of letting people know what we do collect on a twice-a-week basis would go a long ways to solving a lot of the problem. The bicycles and all the stuff that Mr. Williams mentioned, if it's on a truck going somewhere, it shouldn't be going somewhere. And to put out the roll-off boxes in town, the citizens, unless they're monitored, I believe you'll get stuff from Fort Worth and Lord knows where else. The container that I mentioned in pre-council that was sitting up here on Beach Street at the construction site, they haven't even poured concrete yet. That thing was overloaded with couches and chairs, and I don't know if any of y'all saw it or not, but it was heaped over with couches and chairs. We pick that stuff up twice a week, so if it's an education problem, we can cure it there. If it's somebody coming from Fort Worth or somewhere else where they've had labor strikes and everything else going on recently, I mean, there's no way to stop that unless they're manned and somebody's there watching it and checking water bills or whatever you want to do. So that becomes a laborious and expensive process, too.
Well, like I said, I just wanted to let y'all guys know we do appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
And I'm not disagreeing with the other guys. I'd even say this. I'd even go with the contract tonight if it was clear that we could renegotiate and change anything in it any time forward.
Yes, sir. I'm willing to do that.
Rather than having to table it if that was actually the way it would sit. Because otherwise we just spend a whole lot of time just chewing the fat.
Is that it?
That's it.
Councilmember Quinones.
We've all been over this, but I think I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier about the those who want to use it to pay for it. We already have a system set up now for recycling. If you want to do it, you get it. If you don't, you don't get it. And there's a scale as to how many households participate and what the rate is. And I don't see anything wrong with us seeing if we can't find a way to do that with the once a year bulk pickup. Mm-hmm. If citizens feel like that's something they want to plan on, next spring I want to put everything I own out on that curb, and I'm willing to pay $5 a month or $2 a month or whatever it comes out to be on a scale. I see that we've already got a mechanism in place to do that, and those who want it, they can do it. Those who don't, they don't have to worry about it. It's the same thing with recycling. So I don't see that to be a real problem. And I agree with Mr. Owenby. I think we need to go ahead and move on that, and I'd like us to look at it. And I can understand your position. It's unfair to ask you to tell us whether you can take a once-a-year bulk pickup from all the households in the city. That's an unfair thing simply because we don't know what type of numbers that's going to be. And the city's got to realize if it gets to be a traffic problem, we're going to put all our officers down there. That's another thing. I mean, that's another issue. So that's unfair to ask you to answer that tonight. And if that clearly is an issue with us, I'd like us to look at that. And I don't see any problem voting on it tonight, and I don't see any problem waiting until next week. But I do think it's a means of doing this where if it's such a hard issue for a lot of people to have a once-a-year pickup and the residents feel like they have to have it, then I think they should pay for it just like they do with the recycling.
Yes, sir.
It's a voluntary thing, and the system's in place to do it, and you just add another item to it, and you pay whatever the scale is. I'm not saying that they pay the whole charge. I mean, we could work out some trade-off there as far as cost and goodwill and all that. And but I think there's a means there to do that, and I'd like us to pursue that.
Okay, Mr. Brown, I think you heard all. I think you heard about all the garbage you want to take, probably.
I live for garbage.
Refuse. Councilmember Williams?
Miss Harris hasn't got to say a word. I don't know. She sat there and listened to this for 3 hours. I'm sure she's got
motion on the floor.
mine.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I had made a
You're gonna-
motion to continue. I was going to ask if my motion died.
That's what That's what Councilmember Hinterling had said. He would second it.
And I do second it.
Okay. We have a motion to continue to the next meeting with a second. Please signify your vote. Ed?
Well, I wanted to do this tonight, guys.
Well, you're going to have to pick
It's going to
one.
go without me, so.
Don't feel bad.
Are you going to vote?
I just telling you, I was willing to do it tonight.
No, it's not up there.
It's on, or?
That was a no.
I voted in the bottom spot. Yeah. Okay, it passed with Councilmember OMB voting no.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
courtesy.
Hopefully next time it won't take quite as long.
Next time, no will be yes.
So you're going to have to.
Now the mayor is still awake back there.
Fingers sleep with the hand.
You passed off a good one.
Vicki,
As long as we can negotiate.
on number 24.
24? I can't do that one either.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so we're on 25, which we moved. I presume we got through 23 and 24. Those were both moved to the next agenda, to the next council meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And boards and commissions, number 25 was moved. So we're at item number 26. We don't have anybody absent. Nope, we have no one absent. All right. So we will move to executive session. Oh,
There.
excuse me a minute. I don't see, okay, pursuant to section 551.071 of Texas Government Code, we will move into executive session at 9:55 PM. I couldn't find this.
It's changed for